claim, get ready for a better way to file. The Decision Ready Claim program gets you a decision within 30 days after it's submitted. That's just 30 days for the benefits and services you've earned. Talk to your accredited representative or go to www.benefits.va.gov/DRC to learn more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio web, or joining us over on our various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. It already feels like this week is halfway over, if only because of the amount of stuff going on, and we're going to delve into a lot of it here today. Just a couple of things top of my mind here today. Of course, we have got energy prices, energy costs, energy inflation, just all of it up in the grill here, and we're going to break down some of what that's meaning for our area. So I went to go and fill up myself because I'm trying to follow that advice I've got. Let it get to like a quarter tank left, a little bit more than I would usually like, and went and tried to find the best price I could in town on my side of town. I was thinking, oh, no, that must not be the right one. It's not that much lower, not realizing it had already bumped up overnight again. So that's kind of a constant frustration going on out there along with all of this. But the impacts that is going to be having both locally, I mean, you got the aspects of everything probably going to be costing more in the near and short term, but then also what that's going to mean regionally as more, well, not quite short term, but maybe longer term and intermediate term development comes along with this, continues on, plus the international reshifting that could come along with this. It's quite the thread to pull, and we're going to be delving into that here because the second and third tertiary, quaternary, however you put it, effects that come along with this probably going to lead to even more impacts, particularly within the Western Hemisphere, and we'll get into that and what that could mean. Plus more fallout, of course, coming from the elections. I mean, we do have the runoffs that we are facing down here and the now challenges that, of course, are being set up now for November, but even more analysis and what that might mean as we get into, well, all of these other elections, plus those other propositions, the constitutional amendment. I mean, we got a road ahead of us when it comes to the ballot box and staying understanding of it, plus staying involved with it. All very, very important here. And just, how did the more statewide analysis coming in as the dust continues to settle, what does it actually mean going forward? Plus, someone needs to explain this to me. What is the fascination with the bologna smuggling? And we'll get into that here as well. So if you wanted to chime in during the show, some of the better ways to do so over on the social media, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are the places that you can do that. If you want to have your 2 cents on here, open up the phone lines a little bit later as we do. But let's just go and start in straight off with what's going on with prices, energy, all of that good stuff here. And I think it's hard to underestimate just how much that this is going to impact just every little bit day of everyday life. So specifically, I was looking at it because remember Friday, I'd kind of pegged in my mind that, okay, $3.89 is about the gas down the station from here that I'm looking at paying. So as long as I can get in and around that, I'll be good. So I went to one of the big box stores that supposedly has some of the discounted rates, and it was still at that, thinking, oh, well, I guess it hasn't changed that much, because then I went around the corner further and saw that, oh, right, it's actually above $4 a gallon now. I've seen pictures coming in from across the country of upwards of $6. A whole lot of reasons I'm happy that I don't live in California, amongst other things. But Michael Paddles letting us know regular gas over $4 on the west side does seem to be hovering around that here. I haven't done the truly exhaustive survey that, well, takes all day to kind of do, but am thinking I'm going to be appreciating my big box store memberships is the way I'm going to be putting that, because it might help a little bit, but just be judicious with it is the best advice I can give out there right now, because we are looking at a whole lot more instability coming with all of this. Of course, the big news coming in nationally and even internationally today, more specifically, that they're looking at realignments of a variety of ways. The gripe that we've been talking about ever since the start of, and I feel no compunction about calling it a war in Ukraine, even if there's a whole lot of, oh God, you can go so far down the rabbit hole with this kind of thing, trying to figure out, okay, what is being said by who, what, being portrayed by different sides here, where does the truth lie? And you are not immune to propaganda. I got bad news for you, because it comes from all sides, but on the balance, I think it's still pretty reasonable to say that this is an invasion that has happened of a sovereign nation by a country that is mad they don't control them anymore. Trying to get a little bit more detailed with the analysis here anyway, beyond a big country and small country. But, of course, part of the issue has been that with all of the sanctions that have been going on, essentially stripping out and now maybe even somewhat voluntarily seeing the actual government and policies of Russia move towards more isolation. I mean, there's stuff going on with the internet that we might get into that could forestall further issues. Keeping things buttoned up is going to be a theme for a while here, guys. But more specifically, that the oil purchases were still happening. I mean, there's been all the talk about the Nord Stream 2 and the gas pipelines, but even the crude oil sales, and even as those numbers skyrocket, remember thinking last week, as some of y'all were saying, oh, that, going to go to $150, $200 a barrel, seeing outlandish, but man, life comes at you fast now, doesn't it? We're not there yet, but I mean, you look at the impacts on the stock market happening right now. You look at what's happening around town. Michael Pat is saying further, watch the price change from $3.89 to $4.19 while looking at the sign one time. That's kind of a dismal kind of bird watcher kind of hobby that might be developing around here. Let's look at the gas prices changing. Not fun. Again, I take my blessings where I can find them. I appreciate that we're in this situation and not any of the ones currently happening over in Ukraine, but still, the mixed bag. I have been using a phrase here that things are going to get weirder, because sure, this is objectively non-ideal to see this going up. And yes, a lot of the commentary about how, well, this has been somewhat of a trend been going on to this point, because sure, this is an inflection point with Ukraine, Russia, and all of that is really seeing things set for the stratosphere. But this has, of course, been somewhat of a trend line already for that. Ever since the disruptions from the pandemic, the oil and gas leases essentially going fallow and not seeing the kind of exploration had already been somewhat being looked at. I mean, there's that, I think Ed Clore brought it up, and others have been posting about it, that there are job fairs, other exploration, and probably going to see even that ramped up to 11 with the oil and gas exploration in our area. And that's where the weirdness comes from, because even if it's going to be painful short term, we're kind of in a Band-Aid, or let's call it that wayward strip of duct tape that you ended up on your arm. Trying to get that off is not going to be fun by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not looking forward to just about anything I'm doing. This is one of those times that I'm kind of glad that I learned how to ride a motorcycle already, because that thing will keep me going for a while here, and got a similar kind of consideration. Now might be the time to act on it before everyone else does. Just a suggestion. But that there could be a boom to our economy coming out of this. Now, I know that may sound a little bit weird and a little bit cynical and a little bit profiteering, but hey, weirder things have happened. So we're going to go ahead and take that first break of the hour here already and get into that coming out of the break, because there's a whole lot more to talk about when it comes to that, because, hey, things are going to keep getting weirder and are going to keep evolving as we keep heading down this road here. So you are tuned in here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot more that we'll be getting to with all this, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
I-10 westbound at Paisano, a stalled vehicle is blocking the left lane and the left shoulder there with a little bit of a backup. Also on the I-10 westbound towards the downtown area at exit 19, a stalled vehicle is blocking the left lane back up to Brown. Joe Battle Boulevard southbound south of Zaragoza at New World Drive. An accident reported there. You can take Vista del Sol to get around it. And Thorn Avenue at East Red, an injury accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Texas Department of Transportation. As you drive through Texas, keep in mind that don't mess with Texas actually means don't litter. Keep Texas roads clean and beautiful by holding on to your litter until you can get to a trash can. Always keep a litter-free state of mind and don't mess with Texas. A message brought to you by TxDOT.
What happens if we find the home we want, but somebody else just got to it quicker? What if we can't sell our existing home on time and we get stuck with 2 mortgages? I know. I've been there, and I have a solution. Listen carefully. You just need to call Brian Birds of eXp Realty. He'll guarantee your home will sell on time or he's going to buy it himself. You'll get the home you want, and you don't have to worry about getting stuck with a burden of 2 mortgages. Hundreds of home sellers and renters trust Brian, and you can trust him as well. Connect personally with Brian today at 751-1500. That's 751-1500. Or go to brianbirds.com. That's Brian, BURDS.com.
Hey, El Paso, have you heard? To sell your home guaranteed, call Brian Birds. Go to brianbirds.com.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/trial. That's ZipRecruiter.com/trial.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, even before we have the phone line open here. Usually opening it up most of the way through this next segment here. But we've got a lot to talk about here. Energy supplies, importation, the border security implications that come with it here. And Michael Pat is answering kind of a question I put up here. What is with the bootleg bologna? Because that keeps happening. Like, of all the things to smuggle across this sector of the border that I would think would be like a hell of a lot more lucrative, bologna. Like that one specific red packaged bologna too. Because it's how it's made, meat products not being allowed to cross, yada yada. Is it that good? I've never had it. So if someone out there can tell me if this is like tantamount to crack or I'm just missing out on it, it does not make sense to me. Look at how much they keep trying to move. It's not even like I'll bring you over one of my suitcase. It's like a suitcase load of them. Anyway, things continue to baffle me, but we'll talk about them here. But so specifically on then oil prices, oil supplies, again, having fun with that. I wonder if there actually will probably be a run on things like, two-wheeled vehicles, smaller vehicles, things like that, or even if Tesla will start raking it in. Though, of course, notably late last week, there was Elon Musk saying that there needs to be more exploration of energy supplies because he's not, there's a lot of opinions out there about that particular individual, and I have more than a couple of myself because controversial figure is putting it mildly, let's just say that. But even then, he knows which side the bread is buttered on, because if he can't be able to power the cars, and given that not everyone has a Tesla Powerwall or Power Roof or whatever the heck they were coming up, did that ever actually really happen? I saw ads for it, but I don't think it materialized outside of like 3 major cities, I think. Anyway, point is that he's still got to get power generation going here, and the situation is quickly evolving from, well, ideology and what would we like to happen. It just blows my mind that was within the last, feels like months ago, but I'm pretty sure it was the last couple of weeks, that there was actually a bunch of kerfuffle within the legislature nationally about the Postal Service's plan to keep doing with gasoline-powered vehicles, and progressives saying, well, but we can't do that. It doesn't go with our goals, yada, yada. That whole fight that you can understand unfolding for yourself, to now that essentially being backburnered in a massive way, and more specifically us now looking at strategic implications. RJ saying for the bologna there, high MSG content. MSG standing for several kinds of drugs here, because again, the fact that this keeps happening is baffling to me. Ed Clore also saying, glad he filled up with $3.89, the most severely paid since the 1990s. Yeah, like half the country now expected to be about over $4 a gallon per gas here. It pays to shop around town a little bit, and we're still looking at quite the possibility of even more, well, just upperages, everything costing more. So again, keep yourself buttoned up here. And that's just a phrase. I need to put that on a banner behind me, because we're going to need to keep focusing on that going forward here as things keep getting weirder. But so what I was talking about when it comes down to the energy supplies is from our news partners over at KFOX 14, actually, them doing some interesting analysis that I've been wondering about myself, beating me to the punch here, about what actually this refocus could mean for our area. I have recalled in years past, in different media work that I have done, being involved with and covering things like, job fairs, the hiring pushes, the 6-figure jobs for oil field work that have existed in our area that have naturally ebbed and flowed. And of course, policies, as things come into place, have affected them, certainly, but cyclical is the best sense that I get of it from people involved in the industry who have been working and been advocating for it, etc., that it's never always going to be good or always going to be bad unless there are circumstances. And we're certainly in sets of circumstances right now that are a little bit hard to truly grasp on. I mean, they keep changing by the day. So there's an expectation that maybe in the not quite near term, but more medium term, anyway, there might be a chance to see a boom in our area. Because once you start getting into, you ever been out in the oil fields in kind of the southeastern New Mexico area, Hobbs, Jal, all of those places kind of just south of Artesia, really. And then, of course, the Permian Basin on the Texas side of things, Midland and Odessa and all of that. There have been various points over the past decade or so when there was literally like negative housing availability because of the pressure of people being drawn there for the jobs, when we saw things like oil prices spike previous to the, previous administration, actually, would probably be the best way to put it, because we saw a historic low of that. And, I think I don't need to rehash totally the history of how we've gotten here at this point. But Louis Panado saying that these greenie weenies do not understand physics or chemistry or economics or geology. We'll never run out of petroleum, natural gas, electric cars are a fool purchase, and they're more harmful. I mean, there's okay, just from a logistics standpoint, it would make sense in the long term if there were electric vehicles and had a centralized distribution supply, but we're not there yet. We are not ready to flip a switch and be at it, because, right now we're both using the fuel and burning the fuel to truck the fuel around. So if there was like a centralized distribution system that would then get the power to you, but that's part of also what we're dealing with, say, local utilities in terms of getting the actual infrastructure in place to be able to power homes that are not just doing, domestic turn on your lights use, but also vehicle powering. There are monumental logistic challenges that come to it. So again, potentially in the future, magic wand time, wave it, it works perfectly. Yes, that could work. Also, again, the recycling issues I think you're bringing up there that come along with it are fully extensive. There's a reason I haven't done that myself here, besides the fact that I think of a Tesla less as a vehicle and more of a probe that you pay for to then report back. But anyway, the point is that we got some significant intermediary forces to get through before we end up there. And that is what is driving, amongst other things, there to be, well, maybe realignments completely unanticipated on another global scale. It's been a while since I feel like we talked about Venezuela in any kind of serious, non-regional specific means. But that is, of course, the discussions happening now internationally about a potential realignment with them after I don't even believe we have an embassy in that country anymore after just complete, fall off of ties there and just all of the. I mean, okay, Venezuela gets brought up a decent amount as a bad example of things that happen. I'll agree with on that. But beyond that, the idea of that potentially making up the supply in the short term, I mean, this is a realignment of geopolitics on the global scale that even, I mean, you tell me that, oh, by the way, Russia's going to invade someone. I would have said, oh boy, that's going to throw a wrench in everything. But this is the weirdness that I talk about. The fact that it's going to be almost impossible to predict what could happen next. And this also, very interestingly, kind of connects out of Afghanistan, if you think about it, because just look at the way geopolitics had been oriented worldwide ever since damn near 2001. You really think about it that way, is that the United States had been very Middle East and somewhat Pacific, somewhat, Mediterranean focused. But I mean, the Middle East was essentially the center of U.S. foreign policy. And now that withdrawal has happened, which, I mean, yes, some of it was plotted under the previous administration and, of course, executed under this administration and all the failures that came with it, that kind of fell off pretty quick. You did notice, and even in the aftermath of it, even if I think we got some news reports coming up today about some of those continuing impacts, because, boy, hindsight is sure 2020 lately. Anyway, point is that this realignment is now going to be seeing spiderwebbing in even more ways, because we've got now with, of course, what's going on in Ukraine, the immediate questions that have come up with Taiwan, South China Sea, the U.S.-Pacific relations, but then also South America. And so the realignment and shift maybe towards Venezuela and potentially countering the influence that is now being sought or perceived to be being sought by Russia, amongst others. Also, the whole BRICS coalition we talked about, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Those kind of realignments might be coming faster and furious over these next, well, you pick a time frame and probably the answer is yes. And the real interesting thing about moving towards Venezuela is, okay, Venezuela is a great idea of how concepts don't necessarily play out in reality, because it's one of the countries that has massive mineral and oil wealth, and it's just been completely mismanaged to the point where there were probably within the Western Hemisphere some of the biggest refugee crises to be eclipsed probably only recently by what's going on in Ukraine, of course. But they're just, I mean, the whole Maduro and whoever the hell is in charge there now, I've actually lost track. I'll be perfectly honest with you, because that has been such a chaotic situation on its own within Venezuela. But now the U.S. sincerely talking about doing essentially a stopgap and then maybe more. I would love for us to move beyond stopgaps. And yes, I know the Keystone Pipeline keeps coming up, but as far as I'm concerned, that ship has essentially sailed, and there need to be, and I mean, there's reasons to bring it up and reasons to be mad about it and the way it went down and how ideology played out against strategic interest. But more specifically, that we need to look at what fixes this now, because even if we are not actively being shelled, which I am going to thank my lucky stars about every day, it's still going to be wide-ranging impacts that come from all of this if there isn't something done. So, again, going back to our news partners over there at KFOX 14, talking with Dr. Christopher Erickson and others with the Chair for Economic Development, and looking at what it might mean for our area, that there could actually see increases in economic activity in our area, even if we're paying a lot more for everything. I had a circumstance, family member did an Uber Eats order, and boy, were they gobsmacked with everything that went into that, because it was like, if you had just gone and got the damn thing yourself, would have been about half as much or even a little bit less. So we are looking at realignments, not even just regionally, but globally coming out of this. I mean, the global nature of the society that we live in nowadays, with everything connected, and what Russia is trying to do and may or may not succeed with, but the possibilities that come along with it. We're getting real technical and into the weeds with all of this here. The And Michael Patterson pointed out correctly that Venezuela is aligned with Russia, but whether or not they're going to be willing to make the deal, I mean, money talks, and Russia's ain't moving much at all right now. So, we're already due for that next break right here. There is so much to get into, and we'll keep doing that here after the break. You are tuned in to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. Come back out of this break, talk a little bit more about this realignment, what it might mean, what the just shifting geopolitical focus could mean, among other things, for our area, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. We'll talk El Paso after this break.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. The nation's largest pediatric hospital has announced it has stopped gender-affirming therapies after Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered the state's child welfare agency to investigate reports of gender-confirming care for children as abuse. Texas Children's Hospital in Houston says it's made the decision after reviewing Abbott's order. The order came after Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton last month released a non-binding legal opinion that labels certain gender-confirming treatments as child abuse. And Afghan refugees who fled their country following the Taliban takeover 6 months ago are now struggling to find affordable housing in the high-cost U.S. cities where they've chosen to settle. The CEO of the Lutheran Immigration Refugee Service says some popular destinations such as the D.C. area and Southern California are nearing their saturation point as some 76,000 Afghans nationwide have received help from resettlement agencies. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking a couple of crashes, El Paso freeways, I-10 eastbound before Cotton. A crash there has slowed traffic from Brown to Piedras. Stop and go traffic there. I-10 westbound after Geronimo. Crash westbound on the 10 is causing delays. On the Pelicano Drive on-ramp westbound to Joe Battle, an injury accident there with emergency crew responding now. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Lumaland, another injury crash. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After a windy end to the weekend, winds will continue to be lighter throughout Tuesday, along with slightly cooler than average temperatures. Expect a partly cloudy sky tonight, with temperatures ranging from the low 30s in Las Cruces to the mid 30s in El Paso. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about a cooler week headed our way, plus when those windy afternoons return. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has all the innovative tech and tools you need to take on the future of work, all at great prices. Right now, Apple AirPods Pro are only $199, a $50 savings. Offer ends 3/12 while supplies last, limit 2. Explore what's new at Staples, the working and learning store.
Whoever said the more the merrier sure wasn't in charge of hiring new employees, because the more unqualified candidates you have for a job, the more difficult your hiring can be. And that can make the process, well, not so merry for you. Thankfully, there's ZipRecruiter, which you can try right now for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter's powerful technology finds the right candidates for your job. But unlike other sites, ZipRecruiter goes deeper. ZipRecruiter matches people with people, and you can personally invite your top choices to apply, because the perfect hire is more than a list of qualifications. It's an individual. ZipRecruiter makes hiring the right person easy, and that'll keep you and everyone else very merry.
4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So try ZipRecruiter for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's right, free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive, and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
The number one pick is in Wendy's Breakfast, the official breakfast of March Madness. Choose your starting lineup, like the Breakfast Baconator or Honey Butter Chicken Biscuit, and enjoy oven-baked bacon, fresh cracked eggs, seasoned breakfast potatoes, and Simply OJ. Choose wisely, choose Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast, now with a free drink with any breakfast sandwich purchase.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour, and always online at KTSMradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of those ways you can find us there, and sometimes you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. If you want to chime in, welcome to do so, as we have a Lou Panato, John Brownson, and Michael Patos, Ed Clore, and more tuning in and chiming in over there. Another way, or another benefit of being on all those platforms and all those ways, is someone gets your profile Yankee Doodle dandied over there, you can find another way to get at us here. Just careful with your spicy comments. We don't delete anything unless it violates some very simple rules about like spam or constant profanity. We'll only do that once for that matter. But, well, the platforms are what they are, so your mileage may vary. But we'll be out there in all the ways that we can here. A few things talking about here today. Of course, energy on the mind, a lot of it, and all the impacts that come with it, from your home life, your personal life, your work life, your ability to get stuff, and the very impending cost increases that are coming along with it. I am more than a little bit concerned that we might be looking fondly back on 7% inflation. I mean, with the talk of stagflation coming back into the conversation, I mean, that's something I remember studying back in school and thinking, oh, we're definitely beyond that, aren't we? And I feel a little bit silly about that nowadays. But, I mean, all that comes along with it. And some of the local impacts, again, we have been seeing already before international events intervened, as they often do, with a refocus on energy sector within our area. And I expect that to only get ramped up to 11 here at this point, even if the Texas and New Mexico side of things are going to be a little bit disparate. You may recall it was right about the time of the advent of the pandemic that New Mexico, specifically March 25th, 2021, New Mexico's Oil Conservation Commission, they've approved new regulations on natural gas emissions that require New Mexico operators to capture 98% of natural gas emissions by 2026 and prohibit venting. That according to naturallawreview.com here. So that's one of the bit of complications that will come with any expansion or reinvigoration, I guess might be the right way to put it, within the energy sector within New Mexico. And of course, you're not going to find much similar with that on the Texas side of things, given, well, the way state regulations work and the interest in doing them. Though there has been some interesting oil field development of just kind of a free market nature. Again, a weird circumstance that I keep going back to, of someone essentially offering to come in and step in and deal with natural gas emissions coming out of drilling technology, as long as they're able to capture and then use it for fuel cells, and at least one enterprising group then turning that into cryptocurrency mining. Life is weird, guys, and it's only going to keep getting weirder. But point is that this could have some benefits to our area. Again, referring back to our news partners over at KFOX 14, pointing out that, okay, some of the other issues we've talked about, including education and the movement that New Mexico has made towards, well, trying to have a hand in fixing it a bit, or at least dealing with the teacher shortage after they did have, of course, very notably, some uniforms, New Mexico State Guard members, or National Guard members, I get them getting Texas and New Mexico mixed up there, step in order to deal with the teacher shortage. They have now, of course, done some significant increases to that, and it's being pointed out that this is being done because of the higher revenues being made off of the more money being done by oil and gas exploration. So I fully expect that, at least regionally, within our borderland area and reaches just beyond, that this could be, again, the phrase I keep coming back to is weird and all that comes into it, because sure, you're going to be paying for more things, but they could be seeing more economic activity in our area, even if things are overall getting weirder. John Browson saying both Putin and Biden are desperate men here. I got to tell you, sometimes I got to step away from the analysis. I am often finding myself up at like 2 a.m. Watching all of the feeds that can come in from around the world here. And it does seem like, well, at least part of the situation coming out of Ukraine, Russia, and the erstwhile invasion happening there is not going according to plan. Underestimating, frankly, either of them, but more specifically Putin in this case, would be a grave mistake, because he's not an idiot, even if he might have been drinking way too much of his own Kool-Aid lately. Just look at the news conferences he's been holding, when he has held them anyway, where he's at the end of a long table and everyone gathered around the end of it. It's just optically weird at its very base. And then what that shows underneath is even weirder. Not a totally soundly there person, even if, crazy as a fox is still crazy enough for me. Anyway, point is that within our area, I think things are going to keep getting weirder, even if we might see more movement into the area. And if you got any real estate that you are having an option on out in, again, southeastern New Mexico or around the Permian Basin area, that might be a good time to get that on lockdown. Or if you got trailers or something moving in, because I expect, fully expect, that given current conditions, climates, and the way things are moving, going to continually be a focus on for probably the next 6 months, couple of years, if not longer. I mean, theoretically, the whole Russia situation could end tomorrow. Just not likely, but bear with me here for a second. The idea of, Putin has a miraculous change of heart or dies of an aneurysm. Who knows? Just something randomly happens and the strategic priorities completely change. The decoupling that we have seen, both unintentionally kind of being done to them, of the Russian economy, but also the things that they are working on themselves now intentionally, lead me to believe that this is not going to be a short-term realignment happening that way. So, I mean, we've already been on this energy ride here for a while, increasing analysis coming out that only about 1% of U.S. oil and gas exports were really going to be affected by the Russia supply. Really, it's the European partners and people around that sphere, Eastern Hemisphere in general in the world, that are going to be the most affected. But we're still going to be supplying those. I mean, there were still some downstream impacts that were obviously going to come from that. But I mean, this has been a long time coming as it is. And if we see Russia just completely removed from all of it, RJ saying that Jen Psaki says that it's Russia's fault, not Biden policies. Sure, okay, I put plenty of blame at the feet of Vladimir Putin and everything that he has done with his neo-retro imperialist idea of all the territory that used to belong to the Russian Empire, now still technically under his command, if he decides that it is. There's a lot of problems there. Do not get me wrong. But there's clearly been a trajectory we've been on for a minute anyway that some commentators and callers on this show have pointed out were pandemic-related. Sure, but we're beyond transitory at this point. We are no longer in it'll go away eventually. And we got to start thinking about new realities. And again, I hate the phrase new normal, but things are never going to go back the way exactly as they were, because the past is a foreign land and we live in a different world now. And the continuing trends and movement and all that comes with it, we got to be prepared to move forward with it. So again, rough recommendations is still, for the time being, I'll be surprised, outside of, cyber attacks, which is another subject we'll get into, I'll be surprised if supply entirely dries up of any particular resource, maybe individually, sure, but even things like gas or things you might get at the store, I'll still be surprised in the short term if it completely just goes totally bare. Chips still at a premium there. Went to Walmart over the weekend, and still pretty damn well cleared out. If you're one of those hot Cheetos affects, I feel for you. You've been having a bad time of it. But just keep yourself buttoned up. And so on that cybersecurity angle, that's one of the ones that I just wanted to mention here, is that because of all the stuff that has, of course, been happening to Russia and them being sanctioned and just major companies moving out entirely. Speaking of Tesla, them potentially remotely shutting down their vehicles there, Elon Musk being a little bit silent on it, but it is very well known that it is entirely possible for them to remotely affect the activation and usability of their vehicles in remote locations. Look up what happened. I can't remember what the name of the hurricane was, but ahead of some hurricane, they gave a range boost to their more economy models. So it's not even just a conspiracy theory. It's literally something that they have done. Just saying. But that outside of all of the things being done to Russia, that this might be accelerating their choice to disengage from the global system kind of en masse. One of the things coming up that I've been reading about is they're going to be restricting domestic traffic to solely .ru domains, which means that essentially no international traffic can be allowed into the internet system of Russia, essentially taking a slightly different tangent from the whole Great Firewall of China thing. And you might think, okay, so what? Let them go stew by themselves. But that would mean that they might have greater resistance to intrusion of cyber attacks and therefore may feel greater ability and, well, frankly, a certain amount of invulnerability, which would be stupid, but hey, we've seen a lot of stupid happen these couple of weeks, been perpetrating further attacks outside of it because we very notably do not have that kind of a system here. So, I mean, geez. We got a lot of comments coming in here, a lot of comments and a lot of commentary that we'll need to get to here, due for the next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get into more about that, maybe some more about the elections, because I know that kind of feels like it fell by the wayside, but it's still very much on my mind. We'll get into that and more, and go ahead and open up those phone lines. If you're wanting to call in during the show, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking a couple of crashes, El Paso freeways, I-10 eastbound before Cotton. A crash there has slowed traffic from Brown to Piedras. Stop and go traffic there. I-10 westbound after Geronimo. Crash westbound on the 10 is causing delays. On the Pelicano Drive on-ramp westbound to Joe Battle, an injury accident there with emergency crew responding now. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Lumaland, another injury crash. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop Blindster today and save big. Blindster.com.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Are you covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
Enjoy a weekend with New York Times best-selling author Joyce Meyer.
I'm here to tell you tonight that you do not have to stay broken. You can live the life that Jesus died to give you.
The Joyce Meyer Conference, 3 unique sessions of practical biblical teaching to help you get a renewed purpose for your life. Coming to El Paso, Texas, March 18th and 19th at Abundant Church. For more information, visit joycemeyer.org.
Staples Print and Marketing Services help small business print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 3/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details. Staples, the working and learning store.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of things we're talking about here today. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Do have that phone line open now if you wanted to add on your 2 cents. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Delving into a lot of situations here today, but as it usually does at the start of the week for me anyway, kind of taking stock of aggregate situations, I guess the best way to put it now, because there is so much going on. And I do want to caution this. It can be real easy to go down the rabbit hole. I am more than a little bit guilty of that myself, but it doesn't hurt. It may sound weird for me to say this. Disconnect every once in a while, go outside, touch grass, and remember that there is a world out there, because it can get real easy to get insular. But for those ready for that kind of a mode, we're definitely here, as we are 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Leslie Jones saying very clearly of the public/private partnerships we are seeing as businesses are piling on the boycott of Russian bank wagons, $130 per barrel of oil. I gotta say, and this is, okay, I'm a pessimist by heart, I'll just freely admit that, but I try to be twinge it towards realism, as least of not rejecting the nihilistic aspect of it anyway, but it does really seem that things are going to probably get worse before they get better. I mean, in any kind of simple circumstances. This is not a doom, gloom, woe is me, end is nigh kind of thing, but just like, let's look at brass tacks here, that we are going to see probably this trajectory increase of gas in prices. And actually, as Michael Pat has brought up, food shortages and civil unrest. I'm not going to go quite that far, but you're not outside the realm of possibility either. Another bit of analysis coming out of the whole Russia-Ukraine situation is, of course, the fact that Ukraine was and is historically breadbasket of that whole region of the world. And in fact, that they were, some of the analysis I'm looking at, about 3 weeks out of right about now from the usual planting season, and well, with all those tractors now being used to drag Russian tanks instead, mostly a joke, but kind of not really, probably going to be seeing, I mean, surrounding nations, and therefore the supply demand is going to put on to outside of usual sources. I mean, just wheat supplies. I mean, some estimates put it up of awards of like 3/4 of the wheat supply of that portion of the world impacted by this, both out of what's no longer able to come out of Russia, even if China may be stepping in to take up some of that demand here. But I mean, soybeans, all of the kind of stuff that you need, not just even for, consumption, but industrial agriculture and all of that. Probably going to see things, again, weirder, key phrase of mine, and one I use very purposefully because it's almost going to be impossible to know the exact impacts coming out of this. But RJ also letting us know that he just left chip rehab. Good for you, because it might be difficult to keep getting the chips that you want here. Again, I've been lucky with Takis, knock on wood. That's my one of choice there for my late night snack. So I've been lucky with that, but there could be very easily a time, as has been, when it's just not going to be available. So to the point then about food shortages and civil unrest, frankly, we've already seen a level of civil unrest happen within the pandemic itself. A lot of that got, with the whole Black Lives Matter protests and all that, but that could be very easily more written large about frustrations that also came with the pandemic, the lockdowns, the job losses, all of that. I mean, it was all kind of combined under one banner of concern and interest there, but I don't see that as an entirely impossible situation coming back within, again, pick a time frame, and I'll give you a reasonable estimate, but I'm not putting anything under about half at this point of, call it 50-50 coin flip of something kind of going belly up when it comes to any particular kind of supply or situation. So a lot of stuff is going to keep moving and shifting on this. So again, the best advice I can give you, so we're talking about energy supplies, we're talking about personal security, talking about information security, just keep it buttoned up. Keep your information. If you don't already have two-factor authentication on just about everything you can, I would do it, because particularly the cyber attacks, that aspect of it, I mean, even at this company, we've been subject to a bit of it here. Nothing locally, knock on wood. Again, need to keep a block of wood handy on me. But we are looking at probably more intrusion, more attempts to do things. I mean, the whole anonymous thing in Russia is vaguely amusing to me, but more or less a sideshow here. RJ also saying I really miss hot Cheetos there. I mean, again, if you need to get it, I'm sure you can, but I guess that's maybe why this plays into the whole bologna black market, which still baffles me. Is it that good? Has anyone actually tried it? Can tell me, is that red label bologna that actually good? Because I mean, I'm sure I like a deli sandwich as much as the next guy, but it doesn't seem like it's that worth smuggling to me. I barely just got to go and find it for myself here. Michael Pat is also bringing up fertilizer and all of that, because that was also already coming into this. So I guess here's the way I'm looking at this overall as we're rounding the bend at the bottom of the hour here. We're heading into our next one, that we are on a trajectory. we've been on a trajectory ever since essentially the pandemic restrictions and the upsets of the global supply chain came in. I mean, the system has never taken a whack quite like this since World War II. I'm damn near pressed to say. John Browson pointing out that, yeah, the truck convoy protest in D.C. has gotten lost due to the current state of world events here. Some weird op-eds I'm seeing coming out about this thing. Oh, it makes me happy for higher gas prices, which is just, you've proven to me with that headline you are not a serious person. But, I mean, yeah, this keeps coming up and keeps happening. But so overall trajectory, just looking at the way things were moving, I mean, gas prices were already edging up higher even before whole China, Ukraine, all of this and the supply within it kicked off. Supplies were already still decently constrained. I mean, constant supply chain disruptions. Just the system has never taken a whack like this, never gotten its bell quite this sufficiently rung since its realignment that basically started. I mean, you want to kind of trace NATO, but not the military aspects of NATO, but the economic aspects of it, because, of course, it's not just a military alliance. There's a lot of economic cooperation that comes along with it. Ever since that establishment in the late 40s, and then, of course, accelerated, as was the acceleration of NATO, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, the system has been hurtling ever forward with just no backup. Nothing in the back room. Back rooms don't exist anymore. And it's probably going to keep getting worse before it gets better. So, again, not to sound doom and gloom, this is not a cower in your corner and therefore just let life happen to you, but be proactive with it. Do what you need to. Keep yourself buttoned up, two-factor authentication, have a little bit of supply there. Keep in mind what your needs are coming up, because it might not be just totally available, well, in the near term here. Oh, that's enough, a little bit of net analysis for this hour here. We're going to end up going into that top of the hour break here, and we do have that phone line open because I am sure that there are opinions out there on how to deal with this and how to look at it, even just regionally going forward here. Of course, you are tuned in here to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break, the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Whole bunch of crashes popping up on the 10 right now in El Paso traffic. 10 westbound at Campbell, an injury accident there with police and medical on the scene causing a backup. I-10 eastbound at Dallas, an accident reported there. 10 westbound after Geronimo, a crash there with delays. And Pelicano on-ramp westbound at the Joe Battle, an injury accident there with EMS on the scene. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Who can you trust in big media? A recent study finds Americans don't trust big media, and 65% of Republicans don't trust them at all. Now, Newsmax has become a trusted source for millions. They go to Newsmax.com for breaking news and watch Newsmax TV for the latest from Washington, New York, Hollywood, and the world. Download the free Newsmax app on your smartphone and watch it anytime, anywhere. Nielsen recently reported that almost 7 million cable viewers watch Newsmax, but not Fox News. Americans really are making the switch to Newsmax. Start every day with Wake Up America and Rob Finnerty. And watch the Newsmax team at night with Eric Bowling, Sean Spicer and Lindsey Keith, Greg Kelly, Stinchfield, Jen Pellegrino, Rob Schmidt, and more. Every weekend, tune in for Huckabee, Diamond and Silk, Dick Morris, Wendy Bell, and more. Already 20 million made the switch and watch Newsmax all the time. Try it. You may never go back.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late. Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting. In 1890's Ysleta, a pitched battle rages over the local water rights. Mayor Ben Alderetti and his men are cleaning out a water canal when I.G. Gall, who claims to be the legitimate mayor of Ysleta, arrives with his men and runs Alderetti and his workers off at gunpoint. Later, Alderetti returns to the canal with a warrant in hand, and the firefight begins. When the marshal finally arrives and restores order, one man is dead and several are wounded. The locals were heard to say of the gunfight, But fortunately, more horses died than people that day on the canal.
The El Paso History Show with Jackson Polk and Melissa Sargent is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Canutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest, Keystone Heritage Park, and Monterey Asset Management. It's the El Paso History Show, Saturday morning at 10, streaming live on Facebook and on News Radio 690.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Economic fears amid the Russia-Ukraine conflict are causing Wall Street to close with stocks down today. Investors are concerned about the potential economic ramifications of disruptions in the global supply of energy. Oil prices reached their highest point since 2008 overnight on Sunday before pulling back throughout Monday. Evidence of possible war crimes committed by Russia is being collected by the U.S. There's also an investigation taking place into possible human rights abuses. A National Security Council spokesperson told NBC the U.S. is appalled by Russia's brutal tactics and the rising number of innocent civilians who've been killed in Russian strikes. British ambassador to the U.S. Karen Pierce said it isn't just Russia's president who will be held accountable should it be determined that war crimes took place.
Those generals who are in Ukraine from the Russian armed forces will be personally responsible if war crimes are investigated and identified.
Ukrainian President Zelensky is being seen in his office for the first time since Russia started its invasion. In a video posted by Zelensky Monday, the Ukrainian leader states, "I'm staying in Kyiv, in my office. I'm not hiding." A former Amtrak engineer charged with hundreds of counts related to a 2015 train derailment that killed 8 people in Pennsylvania is free after being acquitted over the weekend. Lisa Taylor reports.
Officials say a Philadelphia jury found Brandon Bastian not guilty of causing a catastrophe, involuntary manslaughter, and reckless endangerment. Bastian was at the controls of a New York-bound train traveling more than 100 miles an hour when it went off the rails, rounding a curve in North Philadelphia. Amtrak has paid out $265 million in lawsuits connected to the incident.
Lisa Taylor reporting. Texas's Democratic candidate for governor is being sued for defamation. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
The National Weather Service says the tornado that tore through Iowa and killed 6 people was an EF4.
The National Weather Service says the Winterset tornado was 800 yards wide, packed maximum wind speeds of 170 miles per hour, and was on the ground for nearly 70 miles Saturday afternoon. It's the first confirmed EF4 in Iowa since 2013 and the deadliest Iowa tornado since 2008. It's also the second longest tornado path in Iowa since 1980. I'm Brock Wilson.
Ford Motor Company and Stellantis are being forced to idle some production lines due to the ongoing shortage of microchips. Ford announced their Kentucky truck plant will not operate along with the Blue Oval's Ohio assembly plant near Cleveland. Stellantis announced their plant in Belvidere, Illinois will also shut down for the week. New York officials are urging individuals and businesses to take cybersecurity precautions with the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. Scott Pringle explains.
U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who's on the Intelligence Committee, is reminding New Yorkers to use strong passwords, two-factor authentication, update software, and be on the alert for suspicious links that try and trick folks.
Those tricks often come in the form of emails or direct messages that appear to come from businesses telling you that you need to click on a link to update your personal information.
She is concerned about Russian retaliatory cyber attacks because of U.S. sanctions against the country. Meanwhile, the NYPD says the department has recently seen an uptick in threats, but no systems have been compromised.
Pamela Anderson is going from Playboy pages to Broadway stages. The bombshell actress is set to make her debut on Broadway by starring in the musical Chicago. She said playing Roxy Hart is a dream fulfilled. Anderson follows in the footsteps of singer Ashley Simpson and actress Michelle Williams to play the coveted role on stage. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Inventing Anna, the official podcast, delves deeper into the story behind the Netflix series about Anna Sorokin, the fake heiress who stole the hearts and money of New York social elite, featuring conversations with the actual people who played a part in this iconic story, and series creator Shonda Rhimes.
My theory of Anna, which is, it is that thing that Vivian says, I will make you famous. The world will know who you are.
Listen to Inventing Anna, the official podcast on the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this is John Hope Bryant, entrepreneur and fellow builder, just like you. Thanks to the help of iHeartRadio and Prudential Financial, I like to present to you my brand new podcast, Building the Good Life, where each week a special friend and I will break down and unveil the mysteries of how you build. So if you're ready to build like you've never thought you could before, the best version of you, make sure to listen every Friday on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast.
Dad, this is fun. I didn't think I liked kayaking.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I think it's time to head back in.
Okay. Can we come back?
Sure. Hey, be careful getting out of the boat.
It's a kayak, Dad.
I'm going to return the kayak.
Can we walk home?
How about a taxi?
It's a short fare from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, and, well, I'm just going to paraphrase a comment over here that is very appropriate here. Michael Pettis saying that is out there in regards to some of the conversation being brought up here. You know, we open ourselves up to these kind of interesting comments, but let me just say, you're not supposed to drink the Kool-Aid coming out of the Russian propaganda, guys. Now, there's obviously propaganda on both sides of this, but dude, that's a whole nother damn show for me to even just get into that statement here. But we are Talk El Paso, talking about the things that affect us in the borderland and beyond. Of course, international situations keep affecting us here, but we do have those phone lines open now. If you're wanting to call in, the number to do so there is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Okay, even if you think that there is some, as is being put here, grand plan, draining the swamp internationally and kicking out the nuts. Okay, dude, this is getting several layers deep of ridiculous things. But, okay, let's just put this brass tacks. What is Russia, what is their stated mission and goal in doing this? Besides the fact that I think Putin has been drinking his own Kool-Aid when it comes to his pursuits of this conflict here. The demands, and here are the only demands they are putting forth as their requirements to cease this conflict, are ceasing all military action on the part of the Ukrainian government and military, a change to the constitution to enshrine its neutrality and inability to join any foreign things like NATO, acknowledgement of Crimea as Russian territory, and recognition of Luhansk and Donetsk, the Donbass region in general, as independent republics. That's literally all they're asking for. So I think, just in my junior political international relations analysis, that there's a whole lot of rhetoric and a whole lot of not bite to the bark coming from the Russian invasion of a sovereign country. One of those comments out here that I never thought I'd see on my page, but hey, this is what happens on the internet sometimes about, Russia actually owns Ukraine. It never actually existed as its own country, which, if you have the annotated signed copy of that Putin speech, I'd love to see it, because it sounds like you got an advanced copy there. Anyway, we're getting decently deep into the weeds. A couple other things I did want to talk about today, and I promise we will be further fallout from local elections and such, and the money being spent on it within our area, because we got runoffs and such coming up here. But, well, it's a hell of a time to be alive, and we got a lot to talk about here. So let's get to those phone calls. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Ben on the east side.
Hey there, Ben. What's on your mind?
I've got
question for you. How exactly is this going to benefit our area, Mexico and Texas?
So if you're looking at the thing you're talking about, like particularly the gas prices, the energy prices, like I said, the phrase I use is weird because not going to be all bad, but probably not going to be all good. We've already seen the not good happening, but the potential there for there to be, I mean, there's already been a nascent renewal of oil and gas exploration and hiring and things like that going on. And so if we're really seeing, if oil really goes up to the, hopefully not, but $200 a barrel, there's going to be people beating down the door to try and do further exploration. So that could potentially, again, weirdness abounds, could potentially lead to further economic development within this region, even if we are paying higher prices in the meantime.
But Andrew, our government has said they're not going to allow any more exploration and development of oil. That's the reason why we're going to Iran, why we're going to Saudi Arabia, why we're going to Venezuela, because they have shut down our exploration and development of oil. So, and you really think that the Biden administration and the people that are in the State Department right now that have gone through this just so they could get to the point where they can do this great reset and make it to where everybody's poor, all dependent on government, they're going to back down on this?
I mean, okay, the way I see it is that more specifically, that's sure, ideology is important and has been some of the overriding consideration when we've gotten up to this point, and when we start hitting the rubber hitting the road of people being severely ticked off and just not going to take it. But more specifically, like, sure, some of the oil and gas exploration that's been going on, there are still some federal policies coming into that. I think like a Gulf Coast, but that also was not going to be necessarily short-term development anyway. A fact that has come across my desk and what I've been looking at is the fact that there is about an estimated about 9,000 unused oil and gas leases within the United States that have essentially been sitting fallow because, again, it's been weird circumstances and weird situations, but there has been often an ebb and a flow when it comes to how oil and gas exploration actually goes. So previously, with gas prices low, there had been layoffs in the oil fields because there wasn't enough need and demand to keep more drilling going. And now that was already going to be spurned, and now it's just going to be turned up to 11 years. So it's not going to be fun. This is not yes, we're all going to be great and shiny, happy people. I am not saying that. This is going to be a weird time. Again, weird in all the ways that I mean weird. But there is probably going to be a lot of development in our area because there were already sites potential to be gone through that it just wasn't economically viable. I remember reading back in the 90s as a whippersnapper that United States was probably never going to run out of oil. It was just the reasonable, accessible oil because oil shale, oil sands, all that kind of stuff was available, but the cost of doing it was so monumental that it was just outside the realm. It would take gas being where it's approaching now for it to get there and to make sense. And now we're there, so I fully expect more innovation and more possibilities coming with it. But again, weird. Everything I mean with weird. Good, bad, middle, neutral, unexpected, all of it probably going to keep coming up along with it here. All right. More comments coming in here. A lot of, again, be careful what you're looking at online. That's all I'm going to say here. There's a lot of information, a lot of it unverified. I try to go with trusted sources that I know, but it can get, well, bad real quick here. Got more calls coming on the line. Again, we are taking those calls here now. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Oh, yeah, we're getting in deep on some of these comments here. I think we'll go ahead and take that break here right now, get some of the calls queued up, and then be back with it. So stay tuned. You're tuned in here to Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. I will talk about elections today. I promise. We will get to it because there's more coming out of there, but stay tuned. More after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound before Cotton Street, an accident still causing stop-and-go traffic from Brown to Piedras. I-10 westbound after Geronimo, and an earlier accident still causing slowing. Pelicano Drive on-ramp westbound at Joe Battle, an earlier injury accident there with the medical crew still on the scene. And McRae, southbound at Wedgwood. They're slowing there from a crash. You could use Montwood or Yarborough as alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate.
Liberty. Nobody should have to pay for one-size-fits-all insurance coverage. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
What happens if we find the home we want, but somebody else just got to it quicker? What if we can't sell our existing home on time and we get stuck with 2 mortgages? I know. I've been there, and I have a solution. Listen carefully. You just need to call Brian Birds of eXp Realty. He'll guarantee your home will sell on time, or he's going to buy it himself. You'll get the home you want, and you don't have to worry about getting stuck with the burden of 2 mortgages. Hundreds of home sellers and renters trust Brian, and you can trust him as well. Connect personally with Brian today at 751-1500. That's 751-1500. Or go to brianbirds.com. That's Brian, BURDS.com.
Hey, El Paso, have you heard? To sell your home guaranteed, call Brian Birds. Go to brianbirds.com.
Okay, so we got the chorizo dumplings, the cucumber empanadas.
Sarah's food truck is popping off.
Come on, guys, let's pick it up, all right?
But if she doesn't find a new chef, her truck will be stuck.
Carl quit this morning, so Jessica, I'm going to need you on the fryer.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
I need tech that leaves my hands free during my work day and my workout.
It's possible at Staples. I need tech for my home office that makes it easier to work from home. Also possible, because your local Staples store has the innovative tech and tools you need to take on the future of work, all at great prices. And right now, Apple AirPods Pro are only $199, a savings of $50. Explore what's new right now at Staples, the working and learning store. Ends 3/12, limit 2 while supplies last.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program when we do have those phone lines open. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We'll be going around a lot of the national, regional, international situations affecting us here in the borderland lately, and they've gotten a little bit further afield than we are, but one thing I did want to mention there, we actually did have a call during the break, I do appreciate it, that there was that random mention during the news update at the top of the hour about Texas gubernatorial nominee getting sued. Do have that story for you right now. Said I was going to do elections, we're going to do elections. We got more to get into there, because even as fun as it is to go around the wheel and constantly debate what's going on internationally, we got a lot of stuff going on here at home we'll definitely get to as well. So, good. If you wanted to call in, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in here. Alan Yates, RJ, Ed Clore, and more tuning in, chiming in. Michael Pettis. Oh, just that out there comment is just getting to me. You give them the conversations that we have. So if you want to add your 2 cents, more than welcome to do so over there. But so just the headline from the Texas Tribune right here. Beto O'Rourke says oil tycoon Kelsey Warren is suing him for defamation. Subheadline here, O'Rourke said Monday that Kelsey Warren, the Dallas pipeline tycoon and top donor to Governor Greg Abbott, is suing O'Rourke over his criticism of the windfall profits that Warren's company made after the 2021 winter storm. So that's another wrinkle that's happening as we are, approaching that November election here. So more specifically, that suit and the O'Rourke campaign, of course, calling that frivolous. Texas Tribune not able to get a copy of that just yet, but saying that the discussion over it, and of course there was the O'Rourke campaign's Keep the Lights On tour just ahead of the not lights going off storm that we had earlier part of this year, of course. A lot of focus on that about the bills Texans were paying and the impacts that they saw from the that point failure of the grid. Just, that connected energy supply debate that we're probably going to continue having here. O'Rourke said that during a news conference that Warren is alleging defamation and trying to use his, quote, billions of dollars to try to shut me down and shut us up from telling the story of what happened to the people of Texas. And again, O'Rourke saying we're not backing down. So that little spare mention that happened in that news update there that we didn't want to let slip on by here. So get to more of that here. But again, we do have those calls on the line. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I have lots of heroes in world history and politics, academia, the media, and business. In politics, people like Ralph Nader and Bernie Sanders and Martin Luther King. And then in business, self-made billionaires and entrepreneurs like Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, the founder of my company, Art Williams, scientists like Carl Sagan and Albert Einstein, and media personalities like Bill Moyers and Randy Rhoads, Rachel Maddow, and reporter and author Bob Woodard. There are lots of really super Americans of character with morals and ethics who could make such a better president than Trump was. And too bad not too many of these kind of people have been president in my lifetime. The only two in my lifetime have been Dwight Eisenhower and Jimmy Carter. So in as much as Trump is the titular head of the Republican Party and hints that he may run for a re-election, he's out there holding rallies. I think talking about the next president of the United States, who without a doubt has an effect on all El Pasoans, all Americans in the world. I think talking about that person is one of the most important things to talk about, more important than most of the things that you and your callers talk about. And I think talking about track record of that person is paramount to the well-being of the nation. So do you think that Donald Trump is the best qualified American for president of the United States against President Joe Biden if the election was today?
I mean, when you're talking about qualifications, I'm going to go at 50-50 at this point if he actually runs or not, because the entire course until 2024 is going to be fundraising as it is. So I don't think we'll see much substantive out of there. Just knowing his personality and the fact that the former president is a reality TV star, I'm sure he will keep it up there as well. That's just a matter of fact. I think anyone in a reasonable analysis could assume the same thing. But I don't think that the most qualified person will ever run, because it's the paradox of leadership, isn't it? That the people who want it most tend to be the ones that are not the best. It's the person who wants the least bit of leadership is probably the person who would do the best job of doing it, but just because of the trapping and the traipsing and the all of it that takes to go along with it is the reason that there probably will never see that person actually ever run or be able to be put in as president, because they'll be the one to be the furthest away from it. So we do have, I want to say it was one of the Reagan sons actually that says, imagine every year out there that there's this box. If you leave the box alone, you drop the box, you mistreat the box, the world explodes. And every 4 years, we got another guy saying, well, give me the damn box. That's kind of why I see elections still as it is. So, and sure, there is a reasonable amount of analysis to be done about a former president or upcoming candidates. The issue here, and the issue I take, and the issue that any reasonable radio program would have, is if we are only doing that. And sure, you have your own interest, I have my own interest, people have their own interests, that's what we allow for the call-ins and such and such. But if that's all we're doing, we're going to find ourselves moving on for the balance to get to some more of that talk about the things actually affecting us here in the borderland. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right, we do have those phone lines open now, of course. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Good afternoon. This is Andrew.
Hey there, Andrew. What's on your mind?
Yes,
did you see that oil, the price of a barrel of oil has risen to $130 a barrel this morning?
Yep, I want to say, let me dive back in here. One of our commenters mentioned that today, and yeah, I've been trying not to stare at it, but it's kind of hard not to because it's depressing. Yes,
yes.
Credit where it's due. Leslie Jones did say that a little bit earlier. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, also, according to PBS, gold hit $2,000 an ounce, but it leveled off at $1,999 an ounce.
I mean, okay, so gold's an interesting one. I mean, I've got, some jewelry around here. It's not something I take totally significantly because, okay, sure, it's an indicator. It's an indicator of how things are moving in people's volatility because even with the analysis about the gas market and the fact that, Russia moving out of it will have impacts, but that it's not even anywhere near a significant percentage of the U.S. usage, sentiment is still a key factor when it comes to markets and pricing and all of that. So it's still impacting, absolutely.
Yes, yes. Also, Jen Psaki had mentioned about 9,000 oil and gas leases not being used. Well, it might interest people to know that the federal government has filed an appeal in district court, in the Court of Appeals. I can't remember which circuit it was, but with that, it's put a halt on the use of those leases. And also, Biden has raised the price on existing leases and any future, if any is allowed. We get about 25% of our oil production from federally owned land.
And particularly around in this region, again, I don't expect that'll affect much on the, Texas side of things. But, BLM land, Bureau of Land Management in this case, in case anyone's confused about that, is pretty much north and west of here where that's going to be largely controlled from.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm just saying that Psaki doesn't tell the whole story. Yes, 9,000 leases are on hold right now because of this, essentially because of this lawsuit. And also, I must have to respond to that Raul character when he mentioned a person's track record. As I recall, Donald Trump raised domestic production for we were energy independent. Now we're looking at doing business with nations that are not particularly friendly to the United States, i.e. Venezuela, Iran, and even Putin's Russia.
Still doing Putin, Russia, but they're being disengaged from because the soft power cost, let's put it that way, about there continues to be astronomical. And, okay, you know what? Let's just look at this big picture, a realignment towards Central and South America and being more involved in that, and then actually enforcing things like the Monroe Doctrine might not be a bad thing in the long term, but it being a short-term stopgap, kind of slightly better than the releasing of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as a let's fix this for now and then see what we can do for long term is not ideal, even if there's potential for there being good foreign policy coming out of it, but I'm not going to hold my breath in the meantime.
Well, like I said, I'm feeling it at the pump. Did you see down the street Albertsons, $4.19 a gallon?
I'm trying my best not to, but I filled up yesterday and felt my pain there. So I fully expect that it's going to continue there for a pace here. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. The Lupinato actually with a decent point there. Can't eat gold or silver in an economic collapse, buy lead and food. Okay, I don't think we're going to be at an economic collapse, at least in the short term. Something could go seriously screwy tomorrow and upend my analysis there. But I think that just, again, button up is a kind of good phrase that I've kept in my own mind for a while now. Keep yourself well situated as best you can. Not everyone's got a good situation right now, particularly now, but get those, your pantry going, get your gas supplies, whatever. Don't be doing like the whole 55-gallon drum in your garage. Hey, I think that's illegal in town, technically. And also just kind of a bad idea. You need proper storage of that kind of a thing, but take reasonable precautions. The key being here, reasonable to, do what you need to to continue on here. We are due for that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we will get more calls on the line here, a lot more commentary coming in here. You are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Get to more about the elections. Keep kind of teasing you and kind of doing it. We'll get into it, what that means going forward and more here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. The nation's largest pediatric hospital has announced it has stopped gender-affirming therapies after Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered the state's child welfare agency to investigate reports of gender-confirming care for children as abuse. Texas Children's Hospital in Houston says it's made the decision after reviewing Abbott's order. The order came after Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton last month released a non-binding legal opinion that labels certain gender-confirming treatments as child abuse. And Afghan refugees who fled their country following the Taliban takeover 6 months ago are now struggling to find affordable housing in the high-cost U.S. cities where they've chosen to settle. The CEO of the Lutheran Immigration Refugee Service says some popular destinations such as the D.C. area and Southern California are nearing their saturation point as some 76,000 Afghans nationwide have received help from resettlement agencies. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound after Geronimo, an injury accident is slowing traffic. Watch for delays on the I-10 westbound to Campbell Street. Injury accident there. Pelicano on-ramp westbound at Joe Battle, and emergency crew working an injury accident there. McRae Boulevard southbound at Wedgwood, an injury accident slowing traffic on McRae. You could take Montwood to get around it. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After a windy end to the weekend, winds will continue to be lighter throughout Tuesday, along with slightly cooler than average temperatures. Expect a partly cloudy sky tonight, with temperatures ranging from the low 30s in Las Cruces to the mid 30s in El Paso. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about a cooler week headed our way, plus when those windy afternoons return. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop Blindster today and save big. Blindster.com.
Enjoy a weekend with New York Times best-selling author Joyce Meyer.
I'm here to tell you tonight that you do not have to stay broken. You can live the life that Jesus died to give you.
The Joyce Meyer Conference, 3 unique sessions of practical biblical teaching to help you get a renewed purpose for your life. Coming to El Paso, Texas, March 18th and 19th at Abundant Church. For more information, visit joycemeyer.org.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Staples Print and Marketing Services help small business print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 3/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details. Staples, the working and learning store. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we got the phone lines open now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Going maybe a little bit further afield than we usually do topic-wise on a Monday, but there's just so much going on here. I mean, impacts in the borderland abound from everything going on internationally, and from just deployments and movement of troops to the impact on supplies and resources and energy and all of that. But we got some stuff with elections coming up here as well. Interesting headline out from the Texas Tribune today. Republicans more than doubled turnout in the Rio Grande Valley compared with the last midterm primary, even if, well, their numbers look decently similar to ours in terms of disappointment of actual registered voter turnout. 87% of registered voters in the Rio Grande Valley did not vote in the primary, similar to the 2018 midterm. So similar votes, but very interesting when you compare that to what, of course, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said when he was in campaigning in town in the last couple of weeks about turning El Paso red was the kind of most specific, well, local goal anyway, besides some of his statewide kind of things. So it kind of, I guess you can kind of writ large what is being talked about for the Rio Grande Valley as it, and I guess we're getting tacked onto that here kind of in far west Texas. Maybe I'm wrong with that conception here. A lot of comments coming in here. Stephen M. Purdy with an interesting one about the oil and gas exploration. The other issues that nobody wants to invest in new oil leases and infrastructure if they feel that this administration will shut it down before it's completed, like the Keystone XL pipeline. I mean, there definitely are shades of that of concern here, but again, the closer we get to, God bless, I hate saying it, but I'm at this point not going to be surprised, $200 a barrel of oil, that people will be beating down doors and solutions will be found to get investment going here. But let's get to those calls on the line here to some of the subjects we're discussing here. The number to call again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have David on the east side here with us right now. David, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's on your mind?
For several years ago, I agreed with Sarah Palin and drill, baby, drill, but that's not the issue right now. It's pump, baby, pump. And, you know, we got two people running for re-election. One is the railroad commissioner, and people might think he has something to do with railroads, but it's really pipelines and Texas meters how much gas and how much natural gas and how much crude you can pull out of a well. And so let's turn those pumps on and let's get some stuff going. Now, we also know that when Deepwater Horizon and BP polluted the Gulf of Mexico with that, they had no intent in hooking that up to the supply line. That was going to be a drilling cap for tax reasons. So the Gulf of Mexico off the United States has, who knows, maybe hundreds, thousands of wells drilled that have been drilled and capped. How many other wells on the land have been drilled and capped? And don't forget, China is 70 miles off of Florida drilling. Now, if you get on a cruise ship and head south out of Houston, you're going to know immediately when you've crossed from United States waters into Mexico waters. So let's talk about the stupid elephant in the room, Mexico. Mexico's oil production has been in a steady decline for 20 years because they won't let the dumb gringos pump. They have no ability to drop pipe down 6,000 feet into the Gulf and then drill for oil. Mexico is the saddest excuse, other than maybe Venezuela, but Mexico is the saddest excuse for an oil-producing nation in the world. And they need to get together and start drilling. And if that means the British come in or the Americans come in, then let them in and let them produce and let them make money for Mexico. I had meant before I called you today, and I forgot to do it, but to get phone numbers for the guy I call Abbott Costello and the guy that's the Republican Railroad Commissioner, so we could start calling them. They're up for election, so let's get on their cases and find out why Texas isn't producing. There's absolutely no reason why we should be paying 40, 50 cents a gallon more in El Paso. And if Abbott Costello thinks he's going to turn this county red, and I'm a conservative. But if he thinks he's going to turn this county red, given the fuel prices that we're stuck with right now, he is really, really dreaming. And that last list of, I'd take a bullet for Trump right now. You want to know if I'd vote for him or not? I will vote for him day and night. Two treaties between Arabs and Israel, record unemployment for blacks, Hispanics, whites, affordable gas, affordable food, affordable cars. This country was fabulous under Trump. And we had pigs like Pelosi, who stole $25 million from the American people while she's in. And that mealy-mouthed Mitch McConnell, who's tied in with the Chinese, and Kevin McCarthy tied in with the Chinese. And all of them, they're just crooks. And we need to vote every one of them out. Thank you very much.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point there. Interesting analysis you bring up. The Railroad Commission of Texas, if you've ever want to do a little bit of a historical jaunt back, literally, and this is not even a conspiracy, they literally became the model for OPEC because it was the original. I mean, it is a Texas state agency, but you want to talk about it as essentially the first oil cartel, the Railroad Commission of Texas. Yeah, it doesn't have much to do with railroads, but everything to do with oil and gas production. So interesting analysis you bring up there, and you definitely are echoing sentiment that happens a lot nationally when it comes to everyone in general likes their representative and then hates the elected body as a whole here. I would love to see a mass return to center, but we'll see if that materializes or not. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is, I'm not as familiar with the oil and gas situation in the Gulf as you're bringing up there, but given the way tax codes work and can sometimes go completely counter to reality, wouldn't be surprised if there was more than a little bit of, well, sure, we drilled just so we met our quota for this year and that kind of a thing. I mean, there's a lot to be done here, and there's a lot that needs to be done if anyone really wants to make inroads. And I think that we're going to be seeing, okay, this is my mild prediction, cloudy crystal ball time, that we're going to be seeing more rubber hitting the road, more people saying, okay, we need to get something done, as opposed to this ideology thing. I mean, okay, just think about going back to, the realignment of, geopolitics and the U.S. involvement in the Middle East. Think about what has happened over the last 20 years, up to and even including the pullout of Afghanistan, is that we had serious, major national, international expenditures in conflict areas with little to no. I mean, you could find it specifically and particularly for those of soldiers' families and those of service members, the direct impacts, but for the general populace, I mean, not even anything near the Vietnam War in terms of impacts at home. So we had seen this kind of complete divorce of reality from circumstances on the ground here. And I think as we are seeing more, a phrase that keeps being persuasive for me is that we have entered a decade of great instability. So along with kind of the weirdness, that's what's back in my mind when I'm saying that phrase, is that we are probably going to keep seeing instability and weirdness, and we're going to have to see less ideology and more reality put into policies, because if it's just well, I don't like that idea, it doesn't fit the way I'd like to think about the world, that's not going to matter much. We're going to need to be worried about, okay, how are we actually going to make this work? And a little bit of, reality therapy, at least I'm hoping, because if I don't think we get that, I think things are going to keep getting worse here. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Let's try to squeeze in another call or two here before we hit that next break. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hey, Andrew. Good to talk to you again. Great monologue, rather lengthy, but absolutely necessary. Harry the horse here.
Hey there, Harry. What's on your mind?
Couple comments. And I'm 85 years old, so I'm going to make some comments a lot of people may not understand.
Okay.
The price of oil is going to be the least of our problems. That's going to be the least of our problems before all this is over. Okay. But one thing I learned is thank goodness for Pancho Villa's stash house downtown, because me and Raul may be hiding out there before all this is over. And it's good to know that they got a bed and breakfast down there. We'd have something to eat. My comments today is this, and this is everything, Andrew, in my opinion, okay, going on.
Of course.
Too many things to mention that could have prevented with Trump's reelection. However, the election fix, as I told you, was in, and they're now starting to prove this. And maybe someday the Supreme Court will be able to save this nation. It's what I'm hoping. But like I say, the least of our problems is going to be the oil. And remember, the folks need to remember this, that all the wrong and bad things happen to the other guy until we are the other guy. Okay. So just a little bit of light comments. And one other thing I'd like to comment that Ray my buddy there, he said, and I don't know him, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was an honest, stand-up, righteous individual. He was a peanut farmer from Georgia. But his policies got us into a lot of trouble as do's and don'ts. And if you want to talk about people lining up for gas, let me take you back to 1973 when you would be lucky to get a gallon of gas. Okay. But another thing, Rachel Maddow, please tell me you don't mean that. Tell me that was a mistake. But again, everybody has a right to be on the radio and the TV and express their opinion. No question about that. But we gotta consider everything, and I don't think we are. And the only thing, I'm not going to say anything bad about Joe Biden or his son and all their financial inequities, and probably being the cause of all this and willing to let all these things happen. But again, that's just my opinion, and there may be some other good folks out there that have different ideas. Now, I'll shut up, and great to talk to you, Andrew.
Yeah, appreciate the point in the call there. Yeah, the Pancho Villa Stash House was a very interesting. We had, of course, that on the El Paso History Radio Show this past weekend. And not quite functioning yet. He's wanting to turn it into a venue there. But, give him a call down there. Stop by in the South El Paso area, and I'm sure he'll be happy to show you around out there. Fascinating site. We'll talk more about that in future ways here. But I just tend to believe people when they tell you who they are and who they idolize and what that means. And there's been plenty of people out there that I think are stand-up individuals that would never want anywhere near elected office. And Jimmy Carter kind of qualifies. I mean, being a nice small peanut farmer, the work he does for Habitat Humanity, fantastic. And I think the policies speak for themselves as were implemented in there. So thank you for the point in the call. Squeeze in one more quick one before we hit that next break here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Oh, this is Danny. How are you?
Hey there. What's on your mind?
Hey, listen, I just wanted to... I'm trying to make this sound correctly.
Okay.
I'm going to talk a little bit about Ukraine and Russia. Odessa, Sevastopol, that area of the Black Sea. During World War II, the Nazis, as you know, attacked Barbarossa, attacked Russia and support the Soviet Union. Well, to liberate Sevastopol, to liberate Odessa, to liberate Ukraine, millions of Russians died. Not just from Ukraine, but from Russia itself. Now, within that, unfortunately, if you see the banner that the flag of Ukraine right now, it's blue and yellow. That was the same banner that the Ukrainians that fought with the Nazis and killed a lot of the Jews would wear as in their side, in their armband. Number one. Number two, that killing that they said was the Holocaust in Kiev for the Jewish. Well, part of the people that were there killing Jews were actually Ukrainians, nationalists. Nobody talks about that. The other thing is, and I don't like Putin, and I don't want us to get involved in this, but I don't think we all know exactly the history of Ukraine and Russia. They've always been mixed up since Peter's, the Tsar. And Sevastopol and all that area has always belonged to Russia. Now, the old Russians, the old people in Russia still remember how many people died in the war, the Second World War, trying to liberate Ukraine. the Ukrainians themselves would go to villages that belong to native Russians and would kill them all, women, children, and whatever. And the Russians would do the same thing to the Ukrainians. So it's been like this for a millennia.
I mean, yeah, the history of that region is, Europe in general, writ large, is a history of conflict and of woe here. And yeah, it's often overlooked that the Germans did not, and the Nazis in World War II did not just, set up their systems. They exported them entirely here, but that's a lot more we'll have to get into. We got to take that last break of the hour here right now. So I thank you for the point in the call. Coming out of this, we'll squeeze in another 2 if we can here, but otherwise stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an accident southbound on the Joe Battle Boulevard. It's blocking the right lane to westbound Vista del Sol from Joe Battle southbound. Still working an injury accident, Pelicano Drive on-ramp westbound at Joe Battle. A crash Copia Street south of McKinley at Mountain Avenue. Take Dyer as an alternative to get around it. And a crash slowing traffic Mesa Street at Bartlett Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Did you know that about 70% of the heat transfer in your average home is through the ceiling? What that means is no matter what type of air conditioning system you have, insulation will make your home more comfortable. Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing has the ability to install closed cavity insulation, which can dramatically improve the performance of enclosed patios and converted garages. So call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing for a free estimate at 595-4529.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do. And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
This is important news. If you have unfiled tax returns, the IRS is shifting gears and ramping up investigations on non-filers this year. If you fail to file your tax returns for a year or more, or you owe back taxes, now's the time to call Optima Tax Relief before the IRS finds you. Optima is America's #1 most trusted tax resolution firm, specialized in helping individuals, families, and businesses get right with the IRS. They're experts in the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, a powerful new program that can make resolving tax issues easier. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, Optima's award-winning team has helped thousands of people protect their paychecks, bank accounts, homes, and businesses by putting their tax problems to rest, resolving over $1 billion in tax debts for their clients. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-337-4548. That's 800-337-4548. 800-337-4548.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Short timing it here, rounding the bend on the last bit of our second hour of the show here. Just want to let you know about a couple things coming up here for you. Of course, we're going to be talking more about elections, more about the fallout, more about the things coming up from it, including having on some of the other contenders, those in the non-competitive races or hoping to be in competitive races. Both talking with Guadalupe Yunada later in the week and Irene Amendares Jackson tomorrow, the Republican nominee for the Texas 16th Congressional District. Plus, I was going to be checking in with our partners there and all the news stories coming up here, including El Paso Inc. So stay tuned for all of that here. We're going to try to get to one more quick call before we hit this next break here in the end of the hour. We'll, of course, do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., with more focus on these things. But right now, we do have Jerry in the Northwest line here with us. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Andrew, there's an old saying that says, necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
But we do not have to reinvent anything. It's already there. We can go to compressed natural gas and make vehicles run both on regular gasoline and compressed natural gas. You can fill up at your house. When it reaches a certain level where it's full, the tank is full, it automatically shuts off. You turn a valve, unhook a hose, or you turn two valves, unhook a hose, roll it up, and you're on your way. In the vehicle, you can select either from regular gasoline to compressed natural gas, and you're on your way. If you run out of regular natural or compressed natural gas, you can flip it over to regular gasoline and keep on going. And in order to do that, though, there's certain laws have to be changed.
Oh, of course.
Because there were laws made back, I can't remember when it was, when they started putting in catalytic converters and such, that you cannot change the structure of the vehicle due to environmental issues. But if there is something that says that they can get rid of that law for a certain period of time, they've done that before with certain things, and allow companies out here to build those systems for the individual. I think we can force Russia into eating their own oil. So just something to think about.
No, that's an interesting circumstance. It reminds me, actually, speaking about World War II and all the comparisons that are coming out of this, that I'm aware of people, particularly in Eastern Europe, that went over to gasifier systems to literally use burning wood gas as fuel for cars. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of innovation out there. The question that, in my mind, practicality would be, how able are you to be able to do that in the short term? But I have no doubt we will make it through this. I still remain bullish on America and on our situation, even if I think we've got some difficulties we are facing. But whether or not it'll go that far, whether or not the powers that be, those in charge, are going to allow it to continue on that way, that's what we will keep looking at and keep analyzing the impacts of here. So I do appreciate the point in the call. We're going to have to leave it there with the calls for today because we are out of time here for it. Because, again, just as a reminder, we got a lot more coming up for you later this week. We're going to be doing a whole lot more discussion about the situations and the impacts that we see here in the borderland. So I do want to thank everyone who did call in, comment, participate in the show here, even as there's a hashtag that is going to try to get started here. Vote your values, vote Texas red, vote El Paso red. We'll see if it works out. Again, if you really want to make that going, just get people out to the polls here in El Paso. We'll have more Pound 250 calls and things on that coming up here. So all of this is to say, let's keep talking El Paso. Even if there's issues with information out there, I think the best way we're going to be able to get through this is by having the local discussion and debating what's important to us here. So again, everyone out there, appreciate you being along with us for the ride. Do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an accident southbound on the Joe Battle Boulevard. It's blocking the right lane to westbound Vista del Sol from Joe Battle southbound. Still working an injury accident, Pelicano Drive on-ramp westbound at Joe Battle. A crash Copia Street south of McKinley at Mountain Avenue. Take Dyer as an alternative to get around it. And a crash slowing traffic, Mesa Street at Bartlett Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Olivia,
from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. America's Secretary of State says only one country can end the conflict in Ukraine.
It's imperative that this war come to an end, and Russia has to end it because it started it with no provocation, unwarranted, but also premeditated.
Antony Blinken made those comments in Latvia while